Hello and welcome to Fearless DIY Music. My name is Tristan Lass, and today I want to talk about guitar soloing and kind of how you can put your own signature stamp on your sound. I think one of the biggest mistakes that a guitarist can make when they are endeavoring to lay down a lead or to be a lead guitarist by trade is that they try to emulate the sounds of the past or contemporary sounds by well-known performing artists, and there's nothing wrong with learning how to play other people's stuff. I'm all about that. That's how we all get started. We sit and we copy the masters, and then hopefully get close enough to where we're like, oh wow, I think I know the mechanics of it. I get the scales that they're using, how they work with the chord voicings that are, backing the solo. So I'm not saying that you should disregard those types of things, but to develop your own voice and to have a singular sound that is all your own, I think that it's really critical to kind of it's one of those things where you learn the rules so that you can break the rules. And one of the most important things that I find is that whenever I find that I'm relying on a stock phrase, now what do I mean by a stock phrase? It would be something like this. Where you're just kind of doing the usual, just kind of, one of those kind of things. And if I find that I'm doing that, or if I'm playing that over one of my own tunes, the first thing I want to do is go, no, I can't do that. It's just, it's been done to death. Same with things like, those kind of phrases, or and those kind of things. So what I do, one of the things that I do to try to avoid falling into those pitfalls is that I go ahead and how you have your, you got your minor pentatonic, your major pentatonic. And what I would do instead is I would go ahead and inhabit the full natural minor or the full major scale. Let's go ahead and take the natural minor, and you can start adding in some little things. And if you've ever watched any of my other videos where I'm just noodling along demonstrating a piece of gear or a particular guitar, you'll be familiar with some of the things that I kind of do. Now let's say we're in natural minor, or what would otherwise be your pentatonic if you're just going to keep it straight. What I like to do is I like to add in all those little half steps that are left out of the pentatonic. And I did hit a wrong note there, but I owned it and I went ahead and rolled with it. And one of the cool things too that you can do to kind of make your soloing and to make your, personality shine is there are so many famous players who are famous for playing a wrong note. And then what you do is you just own it. Maybe you repeat the phrase a couple times, like what I did there was. And you just kind of go ahead and roll along with a little bit of phrasing of your own, but just keeping that note in there. Makes things a little bit more interesting. And, if you make it intentional, then you're just adding flavor, which I think is really super cool. Another thing that you can do to kind of stay away from the cliches, one thing that I like to do is I like to do modes. And I'm not talking about, sweep picking or, tapping or anything like that using a mode. More like, how you would roll a pentatonic scale. Well, instead, roll a mode instead. And what I like to use the Phrygian a lot. So I'm always, kind of living in this space. And you can still do, some of your little bluesy licks and stuff, but let's say you come down here and go. And adding all those little half-step flourishes and things like that using the Phrygian, I find that that's like super satisfying when you're going over a progression that you would otherwise maybe use a major or a minor scale over. It just makes you think about different possibilities. And let's see, what are some other interesting things? I wrote down a few things. I also have a little bit of a cold right now, little under the weather, so please bear with me. All right. Avoiding stock phrases, we've already covered that. Okay, tones. I mean, this is an easy one. If you want to sound unlike anybody else, just use equipment or use sounds that other people haven't really explored much. You can throw on, flangers. Let's go ahead and, and just kind of add, flange is something I think is highly underused. Then you can even do little things like that. So, use things that other people aren't using. And like I was doing some little double stops there. That's something kind of from classical music, or what a violinist might do is just, And that always adds a nice little flavor too. And I guess, really the main point of all of this is just like exploring. Exploring things that are beyond the norms of most like standard guitar soloing. Going beyond the blues box, going beyond classic rock, going beyond, all of the standard stuff that we've all heard a million times to find new things. Another thing you can do is I like to throw in non-Western stuff, like I'll mess around with like a Japanese pentatonic scale. I'll just run the top half of a Japanese pentatonic here, and you get an idea of the flavor that you come up with. If you just work off of those 5 notes of that pentatonic and start running them up and down the neck over a standard chord progression, you're going to get some really interesting results, and it's going to sound fantastic, and it's going to be something that forces your fingers to do things they wouldn't otherwise do. I've already kind of talked about half steps and the beauty of, when you go ahead and do that, instead of... You get a lot more when you add all the half steps back into your major and minor scales. Forget the pentatonics. We all know how to run the pentatonics for the most part. I just like doing that. And then the modes do the same thing for you as well. Okay, another thing to do is, most of us know our, triads to a certain extent. If you don't, I am planning on making a video about triads. But real quick here, kind of in the same box area we've been living in, we got our major and our minor. But what if we go ahead and we add the diminished triad, start experimenting with those to shape your solo shapes over chords. And then there's also the augmented, which can come up with some cool sounds here. And start incorporating some of those flavors. Rather than just like, sticking with the majors and minors, go to those augmenteds, go to those diminished. They exist for a reason, and you can do that. You don't have to play them over fancy jazz, progressions or anything like that either. You can play them over standard progressions just to add a little bit more flavor to your solos. All right, what other, off notes? I already did that earlier. I hit a wrong note, and then I just went back and I played it a few times to own it. And let's see, I think that's all I had on my list. We will throw that to the floor. And the thing that, I think that we should all endeavor to do is to find our own voice, to try to, even if it's unconventional, even if it doesn't necessarily fit in with a lot of the other people around you, it is a great way to stand out. I think of unconventional players, like Greg Ginn of Black Flag or Tom Morello, people who have just kind of like forged their own voice on the guitar. And I strongly encourage people to do that, but it can be kind of daunting to come up with that starting point. We don't all wake up in the morning and go, oh, I'm going to write, completely original riffs. I think that some of the things that I've gone over in this video will be of help, you know, trying out, you know, modes, trying out just playing, you know, full scales instead of pentatonics, messing around with different triad voicings and things like that to force you to kind of go outside of the, you know, the norm. And I also just kind of wanted to finish on something that I came up with not too long ago that really, I think, kind of encapsulates what I'm going for when I'm playing guitar, especially lead guitar. And since I am a little under the weather, hopefully I won't screw this up the first time around. All right, this is just a little sequence that I came up with. I would call it a solo. And it sounds like me. And what I like about that little sequence is I've never heard anybody do anything quite like it. It is something that I feel like I could call, if I had a signature sound or if I had a style of soloing, that would definitely be, you know, something that would be representative of that. And then also just my general noodling I do on the channel when I'm just, you know, little phrases like that, that's what I do. It's, you know, and there are elements of all of my influences in each of my own stock phrases. And that's the beauty too. As you go on your journey and you start coming up with your own original things, you will find that you fall into your own traps where you do find that, you know, you're playing stock phrases that are your own and you have to then reinvent yourself again to keep that originality going. All right, well, thank you so much for watching. I just thought this would be of value to people who are looking to branch out, looking for maybe some ideas on how to stretch themselves when they are taking a solo or record, or, you know, in the studio recording and want to lay down a solo that sounds more original and less cliched. All right, if you made it this far into the video, I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe. Subscriptions are going in the right direction. Want to keep the community growing, want to keep the channel growing, and I really appreciate everybody that takes the time to watch one of these. Also, share it with friends if you enjoyed it, and the comment section. I love the comment section. Keep them coming. Anything that you would add as far as things to keep your creativity going and to keep things fresh. All right, you take care. We'll see you next time. Hit that subscribe button.